Hi everybody, I've got a really simple tutorial for you this morning. Quick and easy stitch project today to make one of these little fabric corsage brooches. Very simple basic sewing skills. Children can do it as well. I used to run a young embroiderers group and we had children there as young as 7 or 8 make these absolutely beautifully. So let's show you what you need, shall we? Okay, this is what you're going to need now to make your fabric brooch. First of all, you need something to draw around, like a circle. I use these lids from golden syrup tins. They're just the right size. They're about 8.5 centimetres, 3.5 inches. You could draw around the bottom of a cup onto a piece of card. This is like cereal card, I think. That will be fine, but just something to draw around. You can make them smaller than this. Probably not good to make them much bigger. Golden syrup actually comes in 2 sizes, and both the lids make great templates for this. So once you've got a template, you also need fabric, squares of fabric, the sort of thing that you'd use for patchwork or dressmaking, cotton. You need 5 pieces minimum, 4 inches square, 10 centimetres square. I tend to make my flowers double, so this will become apparent when I show you the method. So I also then have another 5 pieces in a different colour scheme. Again, I hope once we go through the method you'll see what I mean. You will need strong thread. Again, this is very important. Needles. And then to finish off your flowers, you will need some large buttons. These go in the centre, as you can see here. And then to finish, finally, you need a little bit of felt to neaten up the back. I'll show you on that one. And a brooch back. Not essential if you don't have it, but I also find it quite useful to have a glue gun, but we'll get to that in a moment. So the very first thing you're going to do is take your 5 pieces of fabric that all match and your template, and on the reverse of the fabric, with a pen, felt tip pen or biro, this won't show so it doesn't matter, you're going to draw around your templates. It'd help if I had a pen that worked, but I think you'd probably get the idea. And then I'm going to cut out 5 circles of fabric. So I can just about see that. I'll come back when I've cut mine out. So here I've got 4 of my circles cut out. I'm just about to cut my final circle. So let's just do that. There we go. 5 circles of fabric that sort of tone in quite well together. You could have 5 exactly the same, it really doesn't matter. And then what you're going to need is your needle and thread. Remember, it has to be strong thread, and I tend to use mine double. I've got about sort of, I don't know, 30 to 40 centimetre length here. It doesn't need to be that long, but it gives you something to work with. I'm going to take my first piece of fabric. Let's move these ones out of the way so you can see clearly. And I'm going to fold it in half, wrong sides together. So I've got a semicircle, and I'm going to fold it in half again. So I've got like a little quarter circle. And then I'm going to start sewing, probably about 1/2 centimetre in from the edge. Bring my needle up. I'm just going to anchor it slightly there with a couple of stitches just to make sure the knot doesn't pull through. There we go. Random bits of thread. And then I'm going to make a little running stitch along this curved edge. A running stitch, if you really don't know, is just simple in and out. Quite small stitches, don't want to make them too big because we're going to gather this up. So we're literally going to make a running stitch along the edge. All the way to the end. So here you can see I've made this little running stitch all the way around the curved edge. You can see now why you don't want your fabric to be too thick. Furnishing fabrics are too thick. You do need it to be thin cotton because you're sewing through 4 layers of fabric. And then I'm not going to tie it off or make a knot. I'm just going to get my next piece of fabric. I'm going to fold it in the same way, wrong sides together, to make another quarter circle. And still with my thread attached, I'm going to start sewing along a running stitch along this curved edge of this piece. And I'm going to repeat this. Oops, this always happens, doesn't it, when somebody's watching? There we are, my thread's caught up. So I'm going to repeat this along. So I've got my thread is going to run all along that curved edge and then all along that curved edge, and I'm going to keep repeating this with all 5 bits of fabric, so along that curved edge as well. I'm going to sew mine together and then I'll come back when they've done. I've now finished my running stitch and it's gone all the way around the curved edges of all 5 pieces of fabric. So it'll almost look like a little row of flags or bunting. And now what I'm going to do is pull on the thread to gather it up. Now this is where you have to be quite careful because I don't know why that one's sticking. It's always something to make life difficult, isn't there? There we go. So we want to pull them up. I think these fabrics are slightly thicker, which is my problem here. So this is a good lesson in what not to do. Make sure your fabrics are thin. These ones are a little thicker and it's a little trickier. So I'm gradually going to gather each one as best I can. But I don't want to pull too hard, because if I pull too hard, my thread will snap and then I'll have to start all over again, which I thought might even happen with this video. Now I think this is quite a good example because these couple of fabrics I've used here are a little thicker, and I've got a feeling they might have been furnishing fabrics. So this is a good example of what not to do. But I will do the best. And then once you've gathered it into a circle, I'm going to attach it the beginning to the end of your gather. Pull it up quite tight. I'm just going to turn it over, and I'm going to fasten these 2 pieces, the first and the last circle, together with a couple of holding stitches. Gosh, I can hear my tummy rumbling then. I hope you couldn't hear that. And then make a little knot and fasten it off. Now, because some of these fabrics were a little bit thick, I've got quite a big gap in the middle, which does mean I've got to find an extra big button. But we're going to go with it. In fact, I know what I'm going to do. I've made another one, and I had intended that the blue would go behind, but because these pulled up tighter and I've got a smaller hole in the middle, I might actually put the blue at the front and make a blue brooch with the peachy coloured ones at the back. Now you could just go ahead and make a single layer brooch, and you could find a button, put a button in the middle, and you could just finish it off like that. But I think it gives a little bit of depth to make them double layered. And so these 2 are the same size, and that's fine, but you could, using a slightly smaller template, make a smaller one like this. That would also look rather sweet, probably too similar in colour. Maybe I could put that in that one. But I tend to make several and then play around with the combinations until I get one I like. But I'm going to put this one in here. And what we can do, I can turn it over and I can stitch them together around here, or this is where I tend to get my glue gun out. So you can stitch them together, but I'm just going to snip off that thread. But I've got my glue gun here heating up, and so on the reverse of the one that's going on the front, I'm just going to, now if you're doing this with children, obviously be careful, this gets very, very hot. You can get cold glue guns, I don't know how effective they are. I'm just going to run a little bit of glue, not too much because you don't want it sticking out and showing, along the inside of this. Which is also good for the video because it's quicker than trying to sew them together. I'm just going to position that where I want it on the other one and push it in quite hard. There they are, they've stuck together. And then I'm going to do the same with the button now. I could just have a single big button like that. Sometimes I take a large button and a small button and I sew them together, but I nearly always glue the button in place. It just makes it far more secure. Trying to stitch the button through a hole, as you can imagine, is quite tricky. I mean, you can do it by sort of fastening it all around, but it's much easier. So I think, I might go with the orange one on that because it matches the outside. So first of all, I'm going to stitch these two together before I glue them. So to stitch the two buttons together is quite easy. I'm just going to take it up through. Now I've got 4 holes on the big button and 2 on the little one, but that doesn't matter. I'll just work on the opposite holes on the big button. I'm going to line that up. I've got my double thread again, and I'm going to actually take my needle through the loop on the back to hold it secure. I'm just going to run a couple of stitches to hold these buttons together. It actually makes it look quite nice to, even if you're just going to glue your button in place and you've only got one button, to actually run a thread round, because it looks like you've sewn it on then, even if you glue it on. So let's just take that under there and fasten it off. My corsage and my glue gun again, another little tiny bit of glue just around the edge. You don't want the glue to show. And pop my button in place, and it covers up all the gathers and neatens it off. And there we are, we've almost finished. So to finish off the brooch at the back, need a piece of felt, and I cut a circle that's going to be big enough to cover all the gathers. Now I tend not to use the glue gun for this because it gets a bit lumpy, so I will just take a matching thread and, hiding the knot underneath the felt, I'm just literally going to do little overcast stitches around the edge. It'd be easier to do if it was on my lap and not front of the camera, but I'm sure you get the idea. So little invisible stitches all the way around the edge. And let's show you one I did earlier. As you can see, it just stitches this in place. I sometimes, and I've just remembered now, picking this one up, cut a little piece of cardboard, and when I've got halfway around with the stitching, I slip the cardboard in, because that actually makes it flat, because at the moment that's a hollow in the middle. But if you've got a bit of card in there, it makes it nice flat backing. In fact, I've only just remembered that, so that's good. I will start to stitch around this and I'll show you. So here you can see I've already stitched halfway around my bit of felt on the back. And to get the right size felt, I actually drew round the end of a reel of thread. And so then on a bit of sort of not too stiff card, but just a piece of stiff card, cereal card, packaging card is absolutely fine. I just drew around a circle and then cut it out a little bit smaller. So your cardboard circle needs to be a little bit smaller than your felt circle. And then once you've stitched about halfway through, you tuck that in and you're stretching the felt. This is the lovely thing about felt, over it to enclose it, and then you just carry on sewing around the circle just with little over stitches until you get all the way around to the end. And then when you've done that, if you have these brooch back, and then you can stitch that into place as well. So here we are, and that's the brooch all finished. And you'll notice I've stitched the brooch back slightly above the centre, and the reason for that is when you pin it on, if it's in the centre, it will tend to flop forward a little bit, but by centering the bar just a little bit above centre, it holds it nice exactly in position on your shirt or wherever it is you're going to pin it. So there you are. I hope you enjoyed that. If you do make one, I'd love to see it, so please do send me pictures. You can find me on Facebook, Gina Ferrari Art or Gina Ferrari Textile Art, and you can also find me on Instagram, where I think I'm also Gina Ferrari Art. I'll put the links below. And can I ask a little favour? If you've enjoyed this or any of my other little videos, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, because that way I can get my own ULR. I've just discovered that you need 100 subscribers to do that, so a little favour for you. Thank you very much. See you again soon.